Okay, with any luck, a slightly shorter video this time on CVs. We've done covering letters to death. Now let's start thinking about the CV. Well, the point is, at least you're having it read because you've got a good covering letter to persuade people to want to turn the page. So now what? Well, there's a number of different schools as far as doing a CV is concerned. The quick way, obviously, is to go get a template, fill it in. My advice, don't do it. It doesn't often work very well because you're confined by the spaces that the template actually leaves to put things in, like skills. They may have that in a little margin towards the bottom of the page, about 1/4 of an inch. What the hell is that going to do? So be very, very careful about how you select those things. Secondly, you could do a conservative, classic, typical type of CV with all the personal details at the top, and then education, or perhaps employment if you've been out in employment for a few years, and then reverse the two straight after that, and then further skills, sports and hobbies and other interests, technical skills, etc., and go all the way through to references at the end. That's okay if you're talking about banks and building societies and things like that, but these days things are changing fast. Companies don't want things that aren't completely standardized in that form. If they're going to standardize it, they'll send you an application form, and often they do. Why? They'll say, send your CV by all means, but you must fill in the application form. Why? Well, aren't you giving the same information twice? Perhaps you are, but perhaps you're having to give other things as well that the company wants to ask about. And perhaps in addition to that, you're giving this information in exactly the same order as everybody else. So if I'm trying to compare two different application forms, I can look at your answers to number 2 side by side. Whereas if I'm looking at 2 CVs, one might not have that piece of information, and the other one I've got to hunt for. So it's a little difficult. So application forms often solve that problem for companies. Fine, but if you are going to produce a different type of CV, what type do you produce? You turn the world on its head, is what you do. What do I mean by that? Well, the traditional CV says, hey, this is who I am. It's in there somewhere. You go find it. Well, as my German teacher once said to me when I took that approach, it's not good enough, Tony, and it's about time you realised it. And he was right. God bless you, Maurice Gent, wherever you are. So, what am I suggesting you might do? Well, of course, your personal details have got to go in there somewhere, contact details, etc., etc. Fine, put those at the top, put your name in lights. That's wonderful. But maybe what you ought to do then is start thinking about what it is that they say that they want. You look at the job description, which describes what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis in the company, what you're going to be responsible for and for achieving, how many people you're going to be responsible for, what kind of budget you're going to manage. It's got all of that. Then there's the person specification that says, right, if that's the job, then these are the qualities that we need somebody to have to be able to do that job well. So effectively, you've got 2 lumps of information that the company wants. Mostly they're produced in lists. They're produced in bullet point form. They're produced sometimes with numbers. Well, you can almost bet that whether it's bullet pointed or whether it's in a list of numbers, usually the ones towards the top are the most important. When you're brainstorming up a list to put on a job description, you tend to want to go for the things that are most important first, and also the things you think of first tend to be the ones that are most obvious. So usually, numbered or not, the things that are towards the top of that list are the things they want most. So you could look at those things, both in the job description and the person specification, and decide, okay, fine, I'm going to do a specific CV for this job, which fixes me to what they want. So sod the traditional order. Make it easy for somebody to find out what it is that they need. Okay? So that is the alternative. So you've kind of got three. Take a template and do what it does where it does it. Not very good, even if a little bit attractive because it appears to be quick and easy. The classic approach, yes, but you're saying to the employer, it's in there somewhere, go ahead, you find it. Not good enough, perhaps. And then there's the third bit, the third option that says, okay, I've read and reread the job description. I've read and reread the person specification. I really understand what you want and what you want me to be, the certificates I have to have, and now I'm going to give you that information the way you want it. An anecdote. I had a student called Fanny Boyar about 3 or 4 years ago on the MICAI course, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. And she was really good at producing CVs. She wanted to go for 2 jobs. One was with the United Nations. The other one was with EF, which is the biggest global English language school and travel company. She said, here's my CVs. What do you think of them? I said, they're good, they're attractive, but they may not differentiate you from everybody else. You may just be in the crowd. She said, well, what should I do? I said, you should look at the job description and person specification, and you should arrange the way things fall on the page according to what the person, the organization, the recruiter says that they want and find most important. Then the information leaps out at them. And they're impressed not just by the information itself, but by the way in which you're giving it. You are thinking about them and their needs, and that speaks volumes. So those are your choices. Up to you which way you want to go. There's plenty of things that you can look at online. There's plenty of things that you can use for ideas, but beware of just taking a simple template. It's too constraining. Final thing for you. It's not one page anymore. The hallowed one-page CV is dead for 2 reasons. Number one, it doesn't give enough information. The company is giving you more and more and more and more information about the job and the type of person they want you to be. They have to allow you the space and the time to show them that you can do these things, that you are these things. You cannot show that on a one-page CV. On a one-page CV, we all look alike. We cannot positively differentiate ourselves from somebody else. And that is the death knell. You have little chance of getting on an interview shortlist if that's what you're doing. So there we go. It's going to be 2 pages. You're at master's level, most of you now, or at L3. At those levels, you've got a lot to say. You want a lot of opportunity to show. That's what you said you wanted. That's who I am. Look. Okay. So remember, this is all part of what I described in the covering letter part. Ding, 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 ding. It's all to do with hooking and keeping them interested. And a standard template that everybody's going to use won't do it. A one-page CV with very limited information doesn't really help them. That's going to go in the bin. You've got to really work at 2 pages. And my advice would be to build those 2 pages around what the company, the organization suggests that they want. That way you make it easy for them. Your information leaps out of the page in the way that they want it. So up to you. There's some thoughts for you that you need to consider. Up to you to make your own decision on the way that you're going to go. But I think I know what I'd do. And I'd follow exactly the same thing, incidentally, when it comes to interview. Anyway, more about that later. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.